It hasn't started. Here we go. Well, welcome, folks. You're listening to Radio FM88. I'm over here in the right-hand corner. Naturally enough, and well, we've got a lady in green, we've got a lady in blue. So without further ado, purple.
I'm in purple today. Well, anyway, maybe it looks blue.
There you go. Without further ado, I'll pass you over to our host in the Northern Hemisphere, all the way from Dorset. She's on the farm today, and there's a major repair and renovation taking place. There's no power, so they had to bring the generator in. So you're going to listen to the sounds and the, not of Clarkson's farm, but Andrena's farm down in Dorset. That's a good morning to you.
Hang on, I just haven't put my quiet on. Right. Oh, God, it's been full on this morning, I tell you. I'm just going to sit here and pause for breath. So welcome, everybody, to Dreaming the New Dream, wherever you are in the world and whatever time of day you are listening. It's lovely to have you with us. And today it's the 18th of July, 2024. We're swiftly moving through week by week, month by month. This week's guest is the lovely Juliette Bryant. Thank you, Juliette, for being our guest this week. I'm so looking forward to your sharing.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
So I know you've got so many talents. You're a superfood alchemist. You're a soul mentor. You've got plant wisdom. I know plant wisdom mentorship as well. And you do retreat, you do dance, you do singing, you do so many. I don't know what you don't do, really, in the nicest possible way.
Well, she is a wife. We just had a husband on before.
Yeah, and I've got a mother of 3 children.
Mother of 3 children, and you're all vegan?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, and I mean, like I said, we had Giles on a few weeks ago, the other part of the dynamic duo, and you're a credit to your work and what you do and what you eat, how you breathe, how you think. So without further ado, please share how you started and on the different steps that have brought you to where you are now. And then maybe we can get some wisdom and advice to help with all these changes that are going on that are desperately needed.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you for having me. And thank you, everyone listening in Australia and the UK and wherever you are in the world. Lovely to be here. So I think my journey, I was born into this journey, obviously. And from a very young age, I loved being in the garden, growing things. My parents gave me a rockery area where I grew garlic and herbs, and I loved it, absolutely loved it. And quite often I was down the bottom of the garden making potions with leaves and mud and creating magic, and very much lived in that world of seeing fairies and being very connected to everything around me as a kid. And when I was 8, my mum got multiple sclerosis, and this was a really interesting change and an interesting time, because she changed the way we ate. She changed our diet, she changed our lifestyle, and we went on to eating a very, very kind of super healthy diet, lots of lentil stews, lots of fish, because the fish oils were meant to be very good for multiple sclerosis, cutting out processed foods. And as an 8-year-old, I didn't really enjoy that. It wasn't really that good fun. All my friends were having fish and chips and baked beans, and we weren't having that. I wasn't having chocolate. I was having carob, and it wasn't the funnest thing. But one of the things that happened that I found really, that taught me so much from what happened was my mum explained, as we were doing this, why food was important, why we were making these changes. She had a book called The Vitamin Bible, which I've still got, 30 plus years on. And it talked about the importance of nutrients. And so she started to teach me all of this stuff. Now, as a teenager, I stuck my fingers up to all of it, as you do to your parents, and you rebel. And I ate loads of junk food and was like, we moved to America when I was 11, to Florida. Because my mum was American, and the weather was nicer for her illness, and there was a top neurologist there. And so in America, food, junk food is so accessible. So I did go a little bit off the rails, I have to say. But one of the things that happened when I was in America was I went into this bookshop when I was, I think, 14 or 15. And it was like a spiritual bookshop, because I was always into the magical realms of the world. I was always into, I could see and feel, and I was quite psychic as a child. and I used to like look at people's hands and read their palms, even though I didn't know what I was doing. And so I went into this bookshop, and this book fell off the shelf at me. It's called Essential Reiki. And so I thought that was quite interesting. And the woman in the bookshop said, "Can I see your hands?" She said, "You've got the sign of a healer, of a Reiki master. You really need to be learning this." And she said, "You've been doing healing and it's been exhausting you because you've not been channeling the energy properly." And so she said, "I need to teach you because you're going to do yourself some harm." And I had been, my mum's voice would go and I would put my hands on her throat and my hands would get really hot, and then she'd be able to speak for the rest of the day. And so she taught me how to do Reiki. And that was really kind of a big opening into understanding this metaphysical world that we live in, you know, because as a teenager who's got these gifts and there's nowhere to really go, it's very hard sometimes to know what you're doing. And if you're just insane, you know, when you can hear things and you can see things, you can see energy coming off trees and plants. And, you know, part of me was like, I must be just slightly nuts. And so that was really interesting. She gave me this insight to go, okay, you're not nuts. You just actually have these extra sensory perceptions, and teaching me how to protect myself and how to work with those. So that was a beautiful thing. And my mission as a child had always been to become a doctor so I could heal my mother of MS. And I soon realized I didn't want to be a doctor. That wasn't the field for me. And kind of, I trained as a classical actress. That was kind of my first incarnation in life. I wanted to be on the stage, and soon became very disillusioned with that whole world and what's the word I want to use for it, the kind of, you know, ego that's involved in acting so often. And so I started to work in a mind body spirit shop, and I managed this mind body spirit shop with all the crystals, and then decided I really wanted to look into nutrition. And at this point, I became pregnant with my first child. And it was really pivotal because I decided that I wanted to bring him up as a vegetarian. And at the time, so he's now 19, nearly 20, people were telling me he'd be brain damaged.
Yeah.
I thought, this is a load of rubbish. I know he's not going to be brain damaged, but I don't have the science behind me to prove this. So I started to study nutrition. And I was working as a healer. I, at that time, was doing something called Sekhem, which is an ancient Egyptian form of healing, which is very, very beautiful. And in fact, I did my master teachers with my oldest boy on my lap feeding as a 6-month-old baby. So that was quite amazing. But I guess all of this kind of journey brought me to the point, and it was really the birth of my son that made me understand that I wanted to bring him up in a different way. I didn't want to bring him up on antibiotics. I didn't want to bring him up in this conventional medical system. I didn't want to bring him up having Savlon and Germaline put on his cuts and grazes. I wanted to grow things and make my own medicines for him so that what he was having was natural, because this was like my primary drive, giving him the most amazing start to life I could, and keeping him protected from all of the toxins in the world. And that really propelled me into where I am now.
Wow.
Quite a long-winded intro. I mean, I could go on talking for hours about it all, because it's such a journey, isn't it? You know, there's always one step that leads to the next.
Totally. So, so where would you like to go with this? Because obviously you do lots of things.
Yeah.
To bring your children up as vegans or vegetarians is fabulous. And I can remember my daughter at the table once, about 10 past lives now, and she said, "What's this?" And I said, "It's lamb." She went, "What, sheep?"
Yeah.
You know, and I said, "Yeah," and and her face, and I can't remember after that, what happened, but anyway, and no disrespect to people that eat meat, but there's more of awareness now of how it stays in the body longer and what it's doing in the body. And I think this is where you really need to educate yourself on your body and what you're eating and what you're putting in. And it's like some of these packets now, I've seen stuff that says plant food, and you read the label, oh God, there's I don't know where the plant is in the food, but there's just so much in there, and it's not, none of it is natural. And yet, you know, people think, oh, it's plant food, it's natural, but it's not. You really got to have an awareness of food these days, and you know what you're putting in and the effects it's having on your body.
Totally. I think when my oldest was born, my push for organic was so huge because I started to research the toxins that go in non-organic food, and it was huge. And I thought, you know, this is so important above everything else. Eating organically is one of the most important things we can do. And, you know, people often say, well, like, why does it matter? You know, why do you need to eat organically? There's not more nutrients in organic food, because they've done some studies that show that. And it's like, well, there may not be. I think there is. But the thing is, you're not being filled with toxins. The picture that's up at the moment is some of the raspberries and loganberries and blackcurrants from our garden. So a real passion for me has been growing food as much as I can. And now more than ever, one of the things I like doing is growing medicines, because you know, we don't know what's going to happen in this world. You know, we've become so reliant on ordering things online and going to the shops and handing over our power everywhere we can. But when we go back in how things used to be done, people would forage. People would look to the earth for the solutions. And more, this has become a huge emphasis for my life. It's like, let's look to the earth, because all of the answers are in the earth. So how can we connect into the earth and find these solutions? So for me, one of my missions is to get some land. We've got a beautiful garden, and I'm very blessed with the garden, and I grow lots of medicinal plants here. But I would love to get some land that could be that could be really, the aim of it could be to grow all of the medicines that we need, so that people, a community space where you also then teach people how to make their medicines. Because this used to be taught by our parents and our grandparents, and my parents didn't teach me any of this stuff. They weren't into any of this. My mother was New York Italian, and my father was British, but they were both not of a kind of generation that made remedies. There was that whole move where it was like, if you wanted to kind of seem, it was like poor people did that and anyone else didn't. And now obviously it's moving back, and it's coming back into fashion, if you want to call it, like, you know, making elderberry syrups or making, you know, rosehip syrups, all these amazing remedies that are so effective. That's a beautiful thing of cacao there. I am a massive fan of cacao. But for me, the emphasis is really like, what can we grow? What can we forage? How can we start to listen to our bodies and to the earth? And you know, people go on about the climate change and all of these different things, but actually the earth is fine. You know, what we need to do, we need to start listening to the earth and remembering that we're part of this earth, not separate from it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, there's, maybe I'll get you to do some simple stuff for people that want to start and don't know how to start or where to start. But, you know, like for me, like, you know, it's like I hadn't done foraging till I'd come living on the farm, and I've been here nearly 3 years now. And, you know, I've seen the fungi, and I've seen different colored mushrooms and things that I hadn't experienced in other places. But like, you know, just going picking the nettles and having nettle tea. I just love nettle tea. Yeah. It's just and it's so rich and so good for you. And that's just one example. And I know my friend picked some rose hips a couple years ago, and she made a syrup. Oh my God, it was divine.
And rose hips are an amazing source of vitamin C. You know, it's like, that's our native vitamin C, as are plums. You know, plums are a rich source of vitamin C. Blackberries are a rich source of vitamin C. And what I think is so amazing is if you look to nature, as the seasons change, the medicines that we need are presented to us. So it's like spring comes, people have been more sedentary over the winter, and so maybe have a bit more weight, their liver needs a bit more cleansing. And so what's the first things that come up from the earth? Well, your dandelions, your nettles, all of these spring tonics to give your body a detoxification, to clear you out so that you can be in a great space for moving through the season. And then it's like, in the summer, you've got lots of foods that are rich in nutrients. There's an abundance of berries and things like that. And then you start to move to autumn, you get the blackberries, you get the elderberries. Both of these have this purple pigment. It's called anthocyanins. And the anthocyanins are immune boosters. So they help support the immune system. Why do you need that? Well, the weather's about to change. We're about to go into autumn. Yeah. So it's like that preparation. Nature's saying it's time to prepare. Let's up your vitamin C because it's going to get colder. And, when we can start to read these signs in nature, it's absolutely amazing, because we start to work in tune with our environment, as opposed to being these separate beings who are living under strip lighting with concrete, all of these things that actually stop us from recharging and connecting into the truth of who we are.
Totally. What was I going to say there? So, because I know there's like we're in the greatest time of history. We're in this big shift that's sort of going on, if you like. And more people want land, they want community, and they want togetherness rather than how they've been going along on their own. Or, like for me, being on the farm is lovely because there's goats, sheep and horses and chickens, and I love it. But I can't grow anything around by me because, they'll just eat it. So I've been a bit restricted. So, when I go anywhere and do a bit of gardening, I love it. It's just getting back to nature in the soil. So and I can't really do anything in pots, and that's fine. I've accepted that, but I found ways of complementing things where I am. So, and like you say, it's listening to the earth. The seasons change, and, we've been given all the herbs, and I love, I can see all the berries are coming up now, and I just love going around picking all the berries. And there's an apple tree here, and it's got the most divine cooking apples I've ever tasted. And I tried to store them one year, but I didn't do it properly. So of course, a couple must have been slightly grazed, and I lost a lot of them. So I did a smaller portion last year, and same thing happened, but I managed to save like two-thirds of them. But so keep going. What else would you like to share that can help people now?
So what I felt recently is, my work has really shifted over the last few years. So, I trained as a nutritionist, worked as a healer, and I've been speaking, around the world for many years about health and well-being. But what I've really started to get into and feel more and more was this desire to guide people on a much deeper level into the earth, to really help people to remember and to start listening to the plants. So all plants can communicate. It's like all of life can communicate. And so one of the things that is very interesting when we start to tune in is to listen to the wisdom that is in the plant. So there were shamans who were asked how they found out about ayahuasca, like how they discovered that ayahuasca, an Amazonian plant, could really help to elevate consciousness. And one of the things that was fascinating in their discovery was they said, well, the plants told us. And the plants do communicate. So, how have we known through thousands of years what plants did what? How have we had this understanding and this wisdom of what plants do what? Well, because they've communicated, and we were able to hear this communication. And it's only now that we've kind of stopped being able to listen, because we've tuned those senses out. And so I really got onto this mission of guiding people into the wisdom of plants. And so one of the things I love to do, when I'm speaking to a large group of people, is to get them to close their eyes and imagine that they're sat by a rosemary bush. In fact, maybe the listeners would like to do it, and you'd like to do it now. So just imagining that you're sat by a rosemary bush, and you run your hands through that rosemary bush, and you take a deep breath, and you smell that rosemary. Can you smell it? It's there, isn't it? Now, what's amazing is that rosemary isn't actually there physically, but yet we can connect into it. And there's a few steps we can connect to it, because we know what rosemary smells like. So we've smelt it before. So we have a place in our brain where we've stored that memory. Okay, this is what rosemary smells like. So it's this recall. It's like muscle memory. So we can bring that energy back in. That's one level of it. And on another level, because we've developed a relationship, a connection to the rosemary, we can work with it energetically. Now, I discovered this when I was pregnant with my first child. I was doing a 2-year crystal healing diploma course. And after the first year, I got pregnant and couldn't be around crystals. I just couldn't cope with the energy. And so I thought, how am I going to work with crystals if I can't be around them? And, you know, I was quite, at the time, I loved my crystals. You know, I loved being around them. And the crystals spoke to me and they said, you don't need us. You just need to think of us, and that energy, that vibration will come in, because ultimately we are all vibration. So everything is vibration. Vibration is sound. So ultimately everything is sound. So when you think about a type of crystal, or when you think about a plant, you're tuning into its frequency. It's like resonant frequency, and you can bring that into your body, and you can have that working on you energetically. And I've worked with so many people like this, and it's phenomenal what you can do and how the healing can work. It's just like how healing works over distance. There is no separation between anything. And so this understanding has really started to inform my teaching. So I'm currently running a plant wisdom mentorship program. It's a year program where I guide people each month into a different plant. So this month we're looking at rose. So we spend a whole month just diving into one plant and understanding what that plant is, what it's saying to us, what it's communicating. And so we can develop that relationship, that friendship, so that we can start to really build up this toolkit, because this is what we need right now, a toolkit of things that our intuition, our body can go, I need a bit of this now, I need a bit of that. Because one of the things that I've really realized is, you know, we are being bombarded at the moment by geopathic stress, by EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies, by solar activity, you know, these solar flares, the geomagnetic storms, by chemtrails, by toxins in our food. You know, Bill Gates recently said that they're going to spray mRNA into the atmosphere for those who are vaccine hesitant. You know, he's been saying they're putting it on food. So we've got all these things. We've got the cloud seeding where they're blocking the sunlight, so we're not getting the sunlight that we need. So we've got these layers of toxicity and attack on our system. So for me, it's like, well, what can we do to make our bodies, to upgrade our bodies, so that literally it's like water off a duck's back. It's like, you want to throw something at me? No problem. I got a remedy for that. I've got a solution. Yeah.
Next.
Exactly. It's like, how can we just keep going? Okay, that's fine. You just got to keep. So we're just going to learn to be fluid like a river and just create a new pathway that's not going to be affected. But in that process of getting to that point, it's like this pendulum. We have to know what we're working with, and we have to have experienced it a little bit so we can come up with the solutions. So recently I came up with a new product specifically for this. It's called Enlighten, and this was designed specifically to really help and support the body to upgrade our cells, to upgrade our whole system, so that we can really be in that like heightened state of being. So I was really excited about the Enlighten. It was like this kind of, it felt like quite an epiphany and quite a download. So I've been taking it recently, and it's amazing.
Fantastic. Right. Okay. Sorry, we froze then. I didn't know whether it was your end, my end, or what.
Oh dear, am I all right? Am I back now?
I'm just going to open the door a minute because the sound, the sound stops. So just bear with me. I got to open the door before I cook in it.
I noticed the generator stopped.
So with
in the UK there, with your garden, is all your plants in the garden, or have you done raised beds, or you put them into different pots?
So we've got raised beds. We've got my husband built me a greenhouse, which is lovely, and he put an extension on it this year so we could grow more in there. So in the UK, we've had a lot of problems with slugs. So Giles was very ingenious and created hanging like he basically got really big pots and hung them in the greenhouse so that the slugs couldn't get to them, because I think they ate through about 12 cucumber plants, probably about 8 courgette plants. So we've been planting more and more to kind of keep up with it. But everyone's having these problems with slugs because it's been so wet over here.
Right. Do because you talked about the consciousness of the plant, have you talked about the consciousness of the slug and tell them to move on?
I have been having a chat with them, and I've said, look, I don't mind you eating certain things. If you could leave the greenhouse alone, that would be really really good. And we have, knock on wood, I haven't checked it this morning, we seem to have had a little bit of a shifting, and the greenhouse doesn't seem to be under attack at the moment. So I'm hoping that it listened to that. Because it is important that we communicate with all things, but also part of me thought, well, you know what, it's they're obviously needing that right now as well. So, you know, there is balance with everything, and I'm not about to start using toxic slug pellets or anything like that, because, you know, these things cause so many problems. I recently became a trustee for a charity called the Vegan Organic Network, and they're doing such great work to really help people to understand why it's important to grow in this veganic way, so without animal input. And people growing like this aren't just vegans, it's people who are understanding like the importance. So one of the reasons and this was highlighted recently, a local farm where we get our veg box from, organic farm, they're not veganic, they've been using manure, and the hay that the horses have been eating had been sprayed with a certain type of herbicide. It's called aminopylite, I think, something like that. And this herbicide only kills broadleaf species. Now, what's happening is that manure on his farm has now started to affect his crop. So he's had to remove all of it. He's got in touch with the Soil Association. They've taken some crops away to test to see whether it's effective. But potentially he could lose his organic certification for a year because he's put manure on. And that manure has had a tiny bit of this herbicide in it that's then gone on to affect it. So this is, you know, a massive thing. And this is affecting so many farms now. And also in manure, horses are given wormers. Now, these worming pills go into their manure and then affect the worms in the soil. So, you know, there's so many things happening that we don't even realize. You know, we think we're doing something right by using manure because it's free and it's amazing for the ground and the crops. But it's got these other added things in, because now we live in such a world where pesticides and herbicides and fungicides and worming things are used so prevalently. And it's like, well, what is the effect of these things on our system? Like, you know, where is the long-term data saying whether these things are safe or not? And now you're seeing cancer cases rising. We're seeing, you know, heart disease rising. We're seeing diabetes rising. All of these incidents of things on our health that are on the rise. And it's like, well, yeah, because look at what's being put into the food that we're eating. You know, look at the things like there's now a peel, which is a natural coating that they're putting to keep food lasting longer, so it goes on lemons and apples and oranges. This stuff is toxic, but if you look at it, the way they've worded it, it looks like it's natural. So, you know, people are being told not to eat sugar, so they're eating aspartame, which is a neurotoxin. You know, we're being programmed to look at things and go, I can't eat that because that's fat, and fat will make me fat. But actually, fat is essential for every function in our body. So, you know, we can't eat salt because salt's bad. But actually, what happens when you go to hospital? You get put on a saline drip.
Yeah.
Salt is essential for life, but the table salts and things like that that are being used are toxic. So there's this whole paradigm of everything that's healthy being almost like thrown on its head and swapped around. So people start to think it's not healthy. And we got to really look to break out of this. Someone put a comment up saying copper's really good for slugs. Yeah, we've got copper pipes on some of our plants, and it's been working really well.
Yeah.
Hey, we had this lady here in Australia, Bronwyn Holmes. So her grandfather invented this product. So what you're seeing is 1 litre, and you can see that when you squeeze it up into that little component there, you can mix. It's 60 to 1, so you could actually get 60 litres for one of these, and it's it gets into the plant. You spray it on the plant, or you can put it into the earth, and what it does, it gets into the earth and starts the live microbes and starts to regenerate the soil.
Brilliant. We make our own fertilizer here, which we use nettles, comfrey, seaweed, menstrual blood, and male urine. And that's an amazing combination for the soil, for the plants. You know, they're all thriving on that. And if you don't have men's urine or menstrual blood, you could just use nettles and comfrey. They work absolutely incredibly as well. So it's like, you know, finding these other ways that have been done for such a long time already to revitalize the earth. Right.
Hey, because I know sometimes the placenta is actually used too. When you had the Mary guy come on, and he explained that they put in fruit trees such as oranges and lemons and grapefruits, and they use the placenta. And I don't know whether it's the pH or the richness of the blood, but I mean, the old days was blood and bone, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's all the nutrients in the placenta. We used our placenta, and we put that for my middle son. I put the placenta under an apple tree, and then I made a remedy with the first apple for him. So I made a tincture for him with that. And then with my third child, with my first, I didn't know anything about this. I was just waking up to all of this stuff. But with my third child, I ate some of the placenta in a berry smoothie, to really recharge me, because that's what animals do. They eat the placenta. And then I had a lovely woman who came and took the placenta off, dried it, and made it into pills for me. And I took those, and then I've got some in the freezer, actually, because they're very good for menopause. I might start taking those soon, actually. They might be helpful. But they were an incredible support for me in those first kind of couple of months after giving birth, to balance my hormones and my mood. You know, it's absolutely incredible. Nature is such a phenomenal thing.
But what a shame that we are not taught, or the professions aren't taught all these wonderful things. You know, it's like, you know, they still get you laying down to have a baby, you know, if you go to hospitals and all these, which is going against gravity. And there's just so much. And it's like more.
Yeah, but that was because of King Henry VIII. King Henry VIII came up with that one. He wanted to see the live birth of his child. So he got his doctors, and the doctors come up with the bloody stirrup system so he could watch it.
It's definitely designed by a man, I think. But I was very lucky. With my third child, I had a home birth.
Jeffrey.
And it was amazing. We sang through the birth with my second and third child, you know, and it was an incredible thing to really bring in that sound and to allow the body to do what it wants to do. And I think what you said, you know, we're not educated on these things, but it's our responsibility, I feel, to educate ourselves, to start thinking outside the box. You know, the education system is amazing on some levels, but it's also programming us not to think and to just listen and regurgitate. That's what a lot of it's about, regurgitating the information you're given. And what I love, it was great in all my children's report cards, it always said how they asked lots of questions and asked why and thought outside the box and were kind. For me, this is such an amazing thing, to have this free thinking of like, well, why does that work like that? And how can we do things differently? And I think this is where we can really look to the younger generations now to start helping us to repair the rut we've gotten in so much of life, because listening to their ideas, you know, the children are the teachers, and listening to, you know, when you look at kids, they love going outside, they love being in nature, they love that connection. And if you follow them, they've got such an inquisitive nature. What does this plant do? Can I eat this? What's this for? And I think if we can foster that and bring that out, it's such a phenomenal gift. And one of the things I love doing is you know, taking kids out on foraging walks and showing them what's around them, and showing parents as well, because everyone's like, wow, you know, there's so much in such a short space of area that we can access that we can make healing balms from, that we can make cough medicines from, that we can make stuff for our stomachs, you know, all of these incredible remedies. And it's that listening and that looking and that childlike inquisitiveness that we need to bring back for all of us.
Because we all know when we've sting ourselves, you find a dock leaf.
And actually, plantain leaves work much better than dock leaves, but dock leaves do work. Plantain is like the ultimate for stings. So if you get a wasp sting or a bee sting as well, plantain works amazingly. Plantain is also known as the plaster because you can wrap it round a cut or a graze and it helps it. In fact, like yarrow, which is a beautiful feathery green leaf, yarrow was brought over to the UK by the Roman soldiers because they could put it on a knife wound and it would stop the bleeding, which is fascinating.
Amazing. Yeah. So as I say, we haven't got it. Jeff can find a picture of yarrow. I know what it looks like.
Someone just said, I've noticed my grandchildren are so aware of nature and the planet's health and passionate about saving the planet. I'm so proud of them. Yeah, the kids are so aware. And I think one of the things we've got to be careful with them is, the planet, for me, I believe the planet doesn't need saving. We need saving. Because the planet's exactly fine. But our impact on the planet, having less of an impact. But we're part of this beautiful earth. So it's like, I think for me, that respect for nature is so important, and fostering that respect. And that comes, I think, a lot when you start to forage and you start to grow your own food, because you develop a different respect for nature because you're not just using it and taking from it. It's that giving back. It's that reciprocal relationship. So coming into relationship with the earth, I think, is such a beautiful thing to do. And that's what I'm all about, coming into relationship with the earth and with ourselves.
Oh gosh, that's so important, isn't it? Really, now more than ever, it's like, really being grounded and walking barefoot more than ever. And I know, like, couple of times when it's been really cold, I've stood out there like a little bit, just a very short time, and it's so cold I think I can't stand out here. But then I was with a friend last week and we were in the water and I said, I'm going to take my shoes off. So I got my grounding shoes on. I said, oh, have you? I said, well, they look nice. You wouldn't have known they were anything different. Right, there's a picture of yarrow. Beautiful little flowers, eh?
Yeah, yarrow is amazing. You can use the leaves, you can use the flower. Yarrow is incredible. It's really, really beautiful.
And what I love eating is what are they called? Nasturtiums.
Yeah, nasturtium, beautiful orange flowers.
Love them.
There are so many flowers that we can eat. It's quite remarkable how many flowers we can actually eat, how much we can tap into of nature that we've forgotten. So I like to grow as many things that are edible in the garden. It's like honeysuckle, the flowers, only the flowers are edible. They're beautiful. Violets, little pansies, beautiful edible flower. You can eat the blackberry leaves. We can eat the blackberry flowers. There's all these things. You can make tea from blackberry leaves, strawberry leaves you can eat. There's so much food that we can actually access. And, it's one of the things is obviously we do have to be careful and we do have to be aware because some things we can't eat. So, get a good foraging book or get an app. I like books because, it's something to hold.
I like to see it.
And then, go out and start to identify a few things and start slowly with just a few things. Like dandelion leaves are quite easy to identify. Yeah. Nettles, most people can identify a nettle because you'll get stung. Nettle seeds are amazing.
Not if you do it rightly.
No.
If you do it correctly. Because a friend showed me, she said, well, you just go like this and pinch it at the top and always take the top 4, she says. I go around.
But there's if we start slowly, I think people often get overwhelmed by how much is out there. And it's like, there's this thing in life, isn't there? This cognitive dissonance. It's like when you get overwhelmed, you just do nothing. And I think that's what most people suffer from in their lives, is that switch off. It's like, I don't know what to do, so I'm going to do nothing. It's all too overwhelming. It's like when you start to look into all the toxic pollution that's around us, it's like, I'm just going to bury my head in the sand and just turn on Netflix. And it's like, okay, well, let's find simple solutions and small steps that we can take to really start to activate things. And I think that's for me, it's like, let's cut out artificial things. Let's cut out artificial sweeteners, artificial colors. Let's cut out this artificial life we're living in. And let's go back to eating as close to the earth as we can. Let's go back to eating, whole real foods. That's what we've always done. And that's where we should be at.
Definitely, totally. And I think people are getting more of awareness than ever before that, your health is important. And like you say, with so many people going down with so many different issues now than ever before, it's like, really, and like a lot of these herbs and that are brilliant. Because I know I said to somebody who we'd had on the show, who's a leading health expert, and I said about needing some iron, and I think is it Floridex or something like that. Yeah. And he said, don't touch it. Do this, and this. And I thought, yeah, you think, I've taken it in the past because I thought it was good for me. But knowing now, like when he said about that, I thought, well, that's interesting. So obviously I do other things now to complement. But yeah, so
that's one of the reasons I created a product called All You Need Superfoods, which is a mixture of plant protein, digestive enzymes, super greens, medicinal mushrooms, B12, magnesium, all these incredible things all in one easy powder. And it's such a beautiful product. And part of the reason I made it was because so many of it's like a multivitamin, but it's a powder form. So you put it in water, milk of your choice, put it in a smoothie, stick it on your porridge or overnight oats. And the reason I did it, part of it was because there's so much synthetic stuff out there, the supplements, and so many of them are filled with fillers and bulking agents and all this gunk. And actually, when we're taking synthetic multivitamins, they're not doing our body much good because our body doesn't know how to utilize them properly. So when we can get nutrients in their whole food form, even if it's in a powder, then your body recognizes it because it's a real food. And so we can uptake things on such a higher level. And that's so important. You've got the natural forms of vitamin C like camu and rose hips and acerola cherry. And you've got it with the green so that you absorb the ions from the nettle and the moringa. That's how we're meant to have things in these complementary ways to really support our health and our well-being. It's, it's so important. And for me, I've created quite a wide range of products because I've seen by the people coming to me, I've seen what the needs are and seen what's on the market and thought, what, I want to make things that are made with love, that are organic, that are of the highest range possible so that people can really start thriving.
So I think we got the link to your shop, haven't we? Because that sounds great, that you've put all these different things into one packet, because a lot of people say, well, I take 2 of these and I take some of these, and then I take some of that and a bit of this and a bit of the other. And I'm thinking, oh my God, there's just so many things. And they don't always agree and they don't always mix, do they?
No. And I think another part of it that is, a really important part is the quality of these different things that we're getting. So the All You Need Superfoods, it's got its own website as well, which is allyouneedsuperfoods.com. And that's a really amazing product. And we've had so many incredible reviews. You can get it on Juliette's Kitchen in my shop. These are some of the other products that I make because I do a whole range of them. One of the things I'm really passionate about is working with medicinal mushrooms. So I think almost every product I've got has got medicinal mushrooms. The first one there is Zen Cacao, and you've got Supercharge up there, Awaken. So these are all solutions to kind of awaken and supercharge, like your coffee alternatives, using medicinal mushrooms and adaptogenic herbs that are going to support your energy without having caffeine in there. My mushroom tincture I made, which is that gold bottle up there, I made that a few years ago when my son was really unwell with his mental health. So he had OCD and anxiety and was really struggling with life. Couldn't get to school, was in a very, very bad way mentally. And I thought I need to do something, but I don't know how I'm going to I knew I needed to work with medicinal mushrooms, but I didn't know how I was going to get them in him. And so I created my mushroom tincture, and it made such a difference. It's still making such a difference in his life. And I've worked with so many people now. Over 1,000 families have used that with children who are on the spectrum to help them. Lots of adults who've got ADHD and things like that have worked with the medicinal mushrooms and with my tincture and that combination, and had huge relief and an amazing experience, really connecting into the mushrooms, because they're such a powerful tool for healing.
Totally. What was I going to say there? Yeah, so that's fantastic. People can go in on your shop and link and purchase and what have you. So you also do a lot of women's groups as well, don't you? And retreats. Would you like to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when I started running women's circles about 13 years ago. And part of the reason that I really got into running women's circles was because I lost my mother when I was 21. I don't have any sisters. I've got 4 brothers. So quite a male environment around me. And after my first child, I really started to understand and feel the need for that sisterhood and that coming together. And so I started to run women's circles and found them such a great support for myself. And what I really found was amazing was that when we come together as women, and we do it in circle. I think it's really important in circle. So everyone is equal. There's this equality and no one is bitchy. Everyone is coming together for the support of each other. And when we do that, there's such an upliftment for the soul. And then I found that when I was pregnant with my 3rd child, I was getting a lot older. And I really lost my drive sexually. And I'm quite a sexual person. I always have been. And I lost it, totally went. And so I started to realize that I needed to work on this myself. I needed to refine something that was going on within me. And so I started to do a lot of sacred sexuality work around, tantric breathing and stuff like that, just for me. So I could start to move and circulate the energy. And this was after he was born, not when I was still pregnant. And what I realized running these women's circles, that a lot of women have issues after they've had children with their sex drive. And, your energy's going in all these different directions, and recultivating that sexuality, not for someone else, but for your own vitality and for your own purpose and for passion and for that kind of oomph in life is so important. So that kind of took me down this road of what became the Wild Women Retreats, which is a mixture of sacred sexuality work, singing, dancing, creativity, art, cacao ceremonies, meditation. It's a beautiful whole kind of all of this stuff in there, nutrition, so that we can really connect into who we are, to that joy. Because I think as we get older, we forget. It's like we forget who we are, we forget our identity, we become, potentially a wife, a mother, a business person, a this, or that, and we get all these hats. And it's like, yeah, but actually, who is Juliette? Who am I? Underneath all of these roles I've taken on, like what brings me joy in this moment? Not 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but now. Like, where is my joy? Where is my creativity? And not for any specific purpose either. It's like, let's just do art or sing, not to be good at singing or to be good at doing art, but let's just do it to have fun. And so I run every 6 weeks from my home. I run a Wild Woman Retreat Day. And then we did one in April in Spain, which was amazing. And then in November, I've got a Sacred Goa tour, which is for women, where we're going to go to sacred sites, do Ayurvedic cooking and lots of amazing stuff. So that's going to be incredible. Really looking forward to that. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I was nearly going to go on that one, but the Egypt one was calling me a little bit more. So I've booked for the Egypt. But yeah, definitely interested in going to India at some point. That's been on my list a while. So,
there's so many amazing places in the world.
Oh, God, isn't it just?
So we spent 3.5 years on and off in India, and I spent time working with Ayurvedic doctors and learning from them. And it's such an amazing thing. We spent time in America as well with the Native Americans, learning about their system of medicine. And, there's such wisdom in these ancient cultures. And we need to, I think, look back to these cultures, because so much has been preserved in them, so much knowledge of the earth and this earth communication. And for me, that's my real passion, is that relearning how to communicate with myself and with the earth. And I think the wild women work comes from that. The creating of the supplements comes from that. The nutrition work, all of it comes back to that. Opening up my senses, opening and teaching other people to open our senses so we can perceive the wonder of this world, you know. Someone just said a lot of women after the menopause lose their identity. Totally, they really do. And I think that's a big part of my journey as well, of this, you know, my hormones are shifting now, and I felt this changing of my identity. And so having the work of the wild women work and the sacred sexuality work has been a massive support to have that anchor. You know, we've got this coming weekend on Monday is the Mary Magdalene feast day, and I run an online wild women circle. So on Sunday evening, we have our full moon circle online. And we're going to be celebrating Mary Magdalene and looking into all the kind of divine feminine, which is going to be really, really exciting.
Yeah, because I got a friend hosting a day in Glastonbury on Monday as well. So
I saw that there's an amazing thing in Glastonbury for Mary Magdalene. I was tempted to come down for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Looks quite something. But I think, you know, it's like one of the things that I do that I've kind of cultivated over the years is with the sound work. You know, I sing with Giles with the perpetual choirs, and part of my journey has been also listening to the song of the plants. I was sat one day with mugwort in my garden, and mugwort's an amazing mother teacher plant. And I was sat with mugwort and I said, I want to hear your song. I want to hear your stories. And I closed my eyes and I heard this song.
Really?
And it was so remarkable. And I thought, well, if mugwort's got a song, so do nettles, and so does everything else. So I started to listen to the songs of the plants. And when I'm making my remedy, so like Enlighten, which is my new one, which is a mixture of like reishi mushroom and schizandra and astragalus and incredible things, monatomic gold, frankincense, myrrh. When I'm making something, I can hear almost like the resonance of the different things as they come together. And then you know when you've got, that's it, super support, I call it. You know when you've got the right mix, because it's almost like this symphony opens out. It's like that beautiful cacophony of sound that erupts from when you bring the right ingredients together. And I think this is so important. And this specific product, the Enlighten, really, the monatomic gold, the frankincense, the myrrh, these things are so amazing for our immune system to really shift the vibration of our cells, you know, so that our cells are vibrating at a higher frequency.
Okay, so Karen says her friend did some amazing cards around the Mary Magdalene.
Yeah, I think that Mary Magdalene has a big pull. I think at the moment, this divine feminine energy is really waking up. You know, the earth is calling, and it's not to put the divine masculine out. You know, we were in a matriarchal society, we've been in a patriarchal society, and now we've got to find this middle ground of balance of the divine masculine, divine feminine. We've got to both sit in our fullness together, and this really came through for me recently at the summer solstice. Because we had a full moon, which is the divine feminine, and we had the full sun. So the masculine at its fullest and the feminine at its fullest sat together at the same time. And for me, that was a really beautiful, significant thing of saying, you know, we have our aim now is to bring in this sacred union so that it's not about men, it's not about women, it's about us both being in our power, in our fullness, because then we can complement each other and support each other. And, you know, when I do my Wild Women Days, it's beautiful because Giles gets the firewood sorted. He prepares the space so that the women can then sit and drop into that like connection, because they know that they're held by the divine masculine. You know, I think this is such an important thing that we have this balance that has been so out of balance, you know, for so long.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, totally. And like we are coming more and more into balance, little by little, day by day. You know, with the plants, with the earth, grounding, and just being as well. I mean, you know, I've spoken to you about the tooth infection, and I, you know, it's sort of I never sat, because obviously I couldn't do anything, so I was in a lot of discomfort, and I was just sat out on the grass just watching the insects, you know, the few bees and that are around. But then I went past a garden the other day, only a small like a size of a small room, and had like a row of marigold, and I don't know, but it was little rows of flowers, and each row and all the way around was all these slug pellets. And I was thinking, no wonder we got no birds. You know, it was all the top blue toxic, and it was laden. And I was, you know, people don't realize they're killing off all the insects. And, you know, there are ways, finding more natural ways in that for these chemical stuff. And it's like somebody was saying about getting a spray for the dandelions in between well, pour either, if there's too many to dig out, then pour boiling water on. You don't need to use horrible nasties.
White vinegar also works amazingly on weeds. So that's, you know, white vinegar is an amazing thing for so many things and isn't harmful. And I think, you know, we have to start looking at the effects that things have on the whole system. Just like on our bodies, it's the same thing. It's like you put something into your body, it's going to have effect on your whole system. And it's the same with if people are using slug pellets or whatever they're using, or if they're spraying Roundup on their grass. You know, this is something I can't believe is still being allowed to be sold, because, you know, Roundup, it contains glycophates, and glycophates have been shown to be a cancer cause, a huge cancer contributor. And there's class actions going against Monsanto in America. And yet, why is it still being sold? Why is Roundup still being allowed to be used? Because it is toxic. So, you know, we need to start, I feel what we need to start doing is taking our powers back and really starting to look into things and start to do the research, because I think we've become very complacent in society. It's like something's wrong, you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, no, not all of us, but generally, I haven't been to the doctor in years, and long may that last. You know, I think doctors have their place, and, you know, emergency medicine is absolutely incredible, and there can be some amazing life-saving things going on, and that's brilliant. But for me, the first port of call, if something goes wrong, is to tune into my body. What are you saying to me, body? Like, what do you need? And opening up that dialogue and listening, instead of handing over power to someone else, which is what we do in society. We hand over the power. And it's so important now that we really start to connect into our power, because we have been put on this earth for a reason. And, you know, it's so important. Someone's just saying about, you know, Roundup and complaining to the councils. I think that's so important that we get in touch with our local councils and say, don't spray the banks, don't spray these beautiful areas that are also filled with so many different, so much biodiversity, you know, and that is such an amazing thing. How many species can you find in the grass, you know, in your garden?
Yeah, when you sit there, you look around, and there's just so much in just a little space. And they're all interweaving and connecting.
A big part of that interconnection for me, and this has been a massive part of my journey and my awareness, has been the mycelium network. So the mushroom network. So the mycelium is, you know, the mushrooms that we see are the fruiting bodies. So they're like the apple on the tree. And the main part of the mushroom is underground. It's this mycelium, and the mycelium interacts with everything. It covers the whole planet in this bright white kind of filament. And it interacts with every tree, every plant, every animal, every human. And there's this deeper communication going on through the mycelium, which is phenomenal. There's me with mushroom, big bracket fungus. The bracket fungus are probably my favorite mushroom. the artist brackets, the reishi mushrooms, these bracket funguses, the wisdom that is held within these mushrooms, and then you also look at the research that's going in now with the fly agaric mushroom and with psilocybin, with the liberty caps and these psychoactive mushrooms, and their ability to work on mental health issues, cognitive function. That's me with a birch polypore and turkey tail mushroom in the image there. The information that we can access through the mushrooms, through the mushroom network, I believe, as they say, different things come at different times for our consciousness, for our awakening. And it's like we had CBD, cannabis really coming in. And I think that's still there to really support us and help us deal with this physical body, with pain, with inflammation, working on our endocannabinoid system, which is a massive subject that I'm really passionate about. And then we had cacao coming in, which is a heart opener. So let's really connect into the heart, open our heart, because we've been so shut down on that feeling level. And then it's like now the mushrooms are really coming into consciousness, because what they're helping us do is rewire our brain to create new neural pathways where information can travel, so we can come out of this rigid, myopic thinking that most people are in, and into this expansive, creative space where we can really expand into other dimensions as well. It's like mushrooms are rooted in the earth, but the spores are found in space. So it's like, we can start to connect into that cosmic energy as well as that earth energy.
Yeah, and you mentioned a couple of names with the mushrooms there. I mean, I don't know all the mushroom names anyway. I know like your basics, and I've got some lion mane drops, and I've taken rushi. But yeah, there were some other names there that I never heard of.
Yeah, so birch polypore is incredible for the digestive system. Found on birch trees throughout the world. Absolutely amazing. All of the bracket fungus, so like the hard woody mushrooms that look like flying saucers that are on trees. In the UK, there's no poisonous ones of those bracket fungus. But always cross-reference when you're getting anything from nature and make sure that you know what you're getting, because there are a lot of poisonous mushrooms in the world. But the bracket fungus contain what's known as beta-glucans, and beta-glucans have been shown to destroy cancer cells. So the medicinal mushrooms have this amazing anti-cancer ability within them. They're also incredible immune regulators. So they're amazing at regulating our immune system. They're incredible for mental health, for supporting the reduction of anxiety, depression. They're such phenomenal things. They reduce stress in the body. They support our adrenals so we can have natural energy. There's thousands of years of anecdotal evidence from the Chinese emperors about the use of medicinal mushrooms, and science is now backing this up. And it's so important that we really start to I feel, look to the mushrooms. Really, really important things.
Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, when is the shine? I'll have to look into that. But
shine is the beginning of August. It's going to be incredible. The shine
up Stroud Way, is it?
It's I think it's the Forest of Dean, I want to say.
Yeah.
But it's phenomenal. Eli, who runs the Shine celebration, has got some incredible speakers. I'm speaking about sacred earth. I'm really speaking about how we can connect into our heart and the earth there, running a cacao ceremony. But there's incredible speakers. It's going to be such a beautiful event. Really exciting for that one.
Yeah,
Eli the Everyman. Yeah.
Huh?
Eli the Everyman.
Eli the Everyman, yeah.
Yeah, we had him on the show. Yeah,
I enjoyed him.
Amazing. He's a great man.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to
share about cacao, because a lot of people have heard it and don't know what it is. Some, it's just a bar of chocolate, and some do sacred ceremony, some do ceremony. So would you like to enlighten on cacao?
So cacao is beautiful. Cacao is chocolate. So the Theobroma cacao tree is from kind of South America, that it grows in India, Sri Lanka, it grows in warm climes. And the Mayans and Aztecs viewed cacao as gold. It had the same weight as gold. So it was highly revered. Cacao has 360 active chemicals and minerals and is known as the most complex food substance on the planet, most bioavailable source of magnesium. A phenomenal thing. When you roast cacao and mix it with sugar and dairy, it switches off a lot of the active ingredients. So we're not accessing the medicine of the cacao. The best way to consume cacao is like this in this picture, where it's hot, it's warm, because then the medicine goes in better into the system because the heat allows it to go in quickly. Cacao on an energetic level opens our heart. So it really connects us into the love that we are and the love that is all around us. And, I think if we could connect into that space of love more, there would be so much less fighting, so much less division, and this is what's going on in the world, all over division. And so connecting into our heart is really important. That picture is, I was doing a cacao ceremony recently at an event, a lovely yoga event. But when we sit with cacao and we set our intention, this is the important thing. It's like cacao is a tool that the earth has given us to connect into our intention of like, what do we want to bring into the earth and what support do we need? And how can we really allow us to consciously connect into that space? So when I run a cacao ceremony, so my wild women retreats at events, quite often I'll do cacao ceremonies. And I always put the mushrooms with the cacao because it balances the cacao perfectly. It's like the mushrooms ground us into the earth. The cacao opens our heart. And quite often I'll put blue lotus with it, because blue lotus is then opening us up into the cosmos. So we have this beautiful connection happening, which is so important. So we're grounding ourselves through the whole experience. But you then call on the elements and you ask nature and the earth to help support you with your intention. You ask the cacao spirit to help you with your intention. You're calling in these allies to support you. And, for me, cacao it's been such a beautiful gift. And I've taught so many people how to make their own raw chocolates. Chocolate is such a healthy thing if done in the right way.
Yeah.
Not with all the sugar and the dairy and the rubbish that is put into most chocolates. And also, when we get cacao from places where they are really honoring and supporting these indigenous people to grow and keep growing in this beautiful natural way, as opposed to growing on like large scales for mass consumption, like a lot of the chocolate companies now are. So it's like looking to where are you sourcing your cacao if you're using cacao, so that it is ethical, so it is sustainable, so it is supporting and feeding cultures. This for me with anything that I get. So it's like I have a mushroom grower who grows all the mushrooms for all my products, so I know where they're coming from, I know how they're grown. This chain of following through from seed to plate, in essence, for me is such an important part of the process, so that we're not just blindly going, I'm just going to get this because this is the new trend, I'm going to grab some cacao, and it doesn't matter where it's from, because that honoring of earth with it is so key.
And that is it, is honoring everything we do. And like even being in the garden, when you're cutting down things, is sort of letting the plant or the trees know that you're coming around. And sometimes you see stuff ripped out and oh god, you just feel like it's been ripped out through the earth without any thought and consideration. But it's just getting people to just have more of awareness of what they're doing on everything, in life, what you're touching, what you're feeling, what you're hearing, what you're seeing. It's just really opening up your own being to all these wonders that are around us.
Exactly. Someone just asked the question, is it okay to have the cacao with coconut milk or oat milk? That's fine. It's the dairy that has an interaction with the cacao that causes it problem, and the refined sugar. So you could have coconut sugar or maple syrup, your raw local honey, these things that are fine. It's the refined side of it that you don't want. And I think what you said is so true. It's like in the old Celtic traditions, if you were making, let's say you're making a wand or a staff, what you would do is you would ask the tree spirit to leave some of its spirit in the tree itself. So this is actually in Malvern, this tree here. This is the centre
I've just seen Giles sat there. I was looking at fungi up the top here.
This is actually the centre of the perpetual choirs in Malvern. This is the white-leafed oak. Unfortunately, it's now burned down, but it's a very special tree. But
big what fairy, isn't it?
Yeah,
big fairy there.
Yeah, big fairy. I think it might be more of a pixie or an elf.
Yeah, that's right.
Mischievous Pan. But what they used to do in the Celtic tradition was they would ask the tree spirit to remain when they chopped a bit of it down. So because they would say, I would like to use this wood to make a staff. Please, can you leave your spirit in this tree so that it's then known as an imbued item? And so when we make things from it, so if you're gathering medicines, let's say you're gathering elderberries, if you ask the tree, please, can you leave some of your medicine in these berries so that I can make medicine to share with my friends and family? The potency of that medicine is so much greater than if you just chop it down and take it without asking that permission. It's having that that balance that's so important. Catherine is a beautiful woman. She's just said, I feel very fortunate to have met Juliette at Health Foods in Fulham many years ago. She was organising Mind, Body, Spirit festivals and I was practicing homeopathy. We both have a love for plants, good health and good food. What Juliette shares really works and uplifts people's life. Catherine was instrumental in my awakening because I had just had Samuel and my oldest boy, and he had had the first lot of vaccinations and I didn't want to do it and I felt so unhappy and I didn't have the support to know what to do. And I went into the health food shop and I said, I don't want to give him his next vaccinations, but I don't know what to do. And Catherine was there and I said, and I want to detox him from what he's had. And she said, we can totally do that. And she said, you don't need to vaccinate him. And she gave me a book on vaccinations. And I saw her and she gave him a homeopathic vaccination for the MMR instead of him having the one that the government gives you. And she set me up on my journey to go, I've got this, I'm in my power and I can choose what I do for my child's health. I can make that choice from an informed space and I can stand up to any medical profession and say, it's okay, I'm great, thank you. He's already immunized.
Yeah, totally. I met Catherine. Oh God, I don't know. I've stayed with Catherine a few times over the years. Must probably go back 20 years. I can't remember now. It's been such a long journey, but yeah, wonderful.
Hey, remember we had Holly Hunter on, a woman who talks to trees. Remember, she was telling us the story about in the African savannah, and talking about asking the trees for permission. This story relates to the animal kingdom and it relates to the giraffes. And so the giraffes would come in and they have this particular leaf that they love. And they start eating this leaf. And the tree then goes into, I'm under attack. And so it then starts producing a toxin that comes out through the leaves. And it also can bring it out through the actual bark. But in the meantime, now the giraffes is, obviously chewing away and then starts moving off. But that network of trees, that species of trees, the scent gets carried in the wind and goes downstream to the other fellow species of trees. And then they realize they're going to be under attack as well. So they start producing the same toxin. But the giraffe is intelligent enough to break and enter. He's a criminal. He goes upwind. So those trees upwind don't even know that the other ones have been under attack. It's a really interesting dichotomy between the trees and the giraffes. It was just an awesome story to share tonight. Thank you very much.
It's amazing, this interaction and interplay of nature. Someone was telling me the other day that the aphids come onto plants to eat the toxins. So when the plant is growing in toxic soil, the plant is pulling up the toxins from the soil to basically clear it from the soil so that it's growing in a better condition. So it's clearing it through it. And the aphids are eating this toxin off of the plant to support the plant. And yet we come along and go, aphids are invading our plant. Let's spray it and kill them. but they're actually serving a purpose. And I remember we were in a beautiful place called Tanshika Spice Farm in India, absolutely amazing, in South Goa. And I'm going back there on my retreat. Incredible people, organic, growing in this permaculture way. And they have cacao trees there. And we were at this cacao tree. And I said, why are there ants all over the flowers? And he said, the ants eat the fungus that affects the flowers. And he said, the problem is, he said, most farmers will see the ants and kill the ants. And then they'll have to get a fungicide to kill the fungus that's killing the flowers. So then you've got this whole process of chemicals that have been put in. Whereas if you actually just leave nature, it knows what it's doing. And nature doesn't want to destroy all of itself. It's like the trees with the giraffes. I think that's amazing. You know, that there is this natural cycle because things want to live in nature and sustain themselves.
And it's funny because I've started working as a volunteer in the Chalice Well Gardens because that's my favourite place when I'm in Glastonbury, and it gives me a chance to work with nature. And one of the Dave, the head gardener, or whatever they call him there, he was showing me was it arrowhead? I can't think. Anyway, it goes tall and it's like a cluster. It come to me in a minute.
Mullen?
No. Flip. Anyway, and he showed me all the aphids on there, and he said, and people say, "Oh God, look at He said, but the reasons we've got no young sparrows is they feed off the aphids. And they've got nothing to feed on, And it's just, and I know in the past I've seen greenfly, and I've got it off with liquidy soap and things like that, not knowing what I know now. Yeah. It's a learning curve, isn't it?
Totally. Yeah.
And hopefully more and more people are now listening and being more aware, and we can start turning things around much faster than it's been going.
Exactly. This is a beautiful picture of mullein there. Mullein is an amazing plant that's amazing for coughs. You can use the leaves as an incredible cough medicine, very good for the digestive system. The flowers are very good for ear infections. Absolutely incredible plants. Such incredible medicine. Mullein is absolutely amazing. So beautiful.
I've got a friend at the moment. He's got suffering with a terrible cough, and I'll tell him to get some of that. So what do they do? Wrap it around the throat?
No, so you would make so you'd get the leaves and you dry them and then make a tea with them. That's a good thing. And I've got it in my Breathe. I've got a tincture called Breathe, which is for respiratory support, and mullein's one of the ingredients in there. I've got mullein in my new Enlighten as well, because mullein is phenomenal at respiratory support. It's a demulsive, so it soothes and coats. Really good for that.
Yeah, I'll mention that. Okay. Well, I know time is moving on, and I could talk to you for hours about all of these things because you've got so much wisdom and knowledge to share, and you vibrate, you're passionate, you walk your talk, and this is who you are. What we see is what we get. So you've honestly, you've been an absolute delight. I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to your sharing, and perhaps you come back with some more wisdom later on in the year for the autumn. Well, it's not that far away, really.
That would be lovely. Thank you so much for having me on as well. Really enjoyed it.
No, it's been an absolute delight. So thank you everybody for tuning in to Dreaming the New Dream this week, and same time next week. And we've got a very interesting guy next week, and each person's unique in their own way, and we love what they're all dreaming the new dream and helping humanity. So on that note, thank you everybody, and have a beautiful week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
All right, love you.